You're welcome. No problem.
Okay, so I'm going to go on a couple assumptions. You know, you guys have been using the equipment, so you basically understand how to operate the console and connect to it and bring up the software, those kinds of things. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have some familiar. Yeah, we've been doing it.
Very good. All right, so just kind of getting started, there are a couple things that are important to do, and it'll make more sense later. But if you do want to do them up front. First, you want to make sure that you have a default printer set up. Normally, you're up on a stack. You don't really have a printer, so you're going to have something like a PDF writer or an XPS type printer, you know, that creates a file. You familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay. If you don't have one, if you're running Windows 7 and higher, you're going to get an XPS printer. It comes with it right here.
Okay.
This little cute PDF writer, we include the software for that. If you look in your C drive, and under Utilities, you've got this cute writer. You can unzip and install it, and it'll create your little PDF printer.
Okay.
Okay. The reason you want to have this done because when you finish the audit, you print a copy of it, and then when you say you're done, that means you're done, and you kind of can't go back to it. So you want to make sure your printer's ready and available. Right. Okay. And another thing that you want to do, and bear with me, my software is not quite the same order, but under your C drive, you're going to have a folder called Apex Documentation.
Okay.
Okay, you guys can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. In there's actual manual, this console audit. Okay? And I'm going to bring it up just so we can kind of go through it. So just if you get stuck or you need a little bit of help, you can find the manual for it. And basically all this one does is just for the actual audit itself.
Okay.
All right, so to start out, I'm going to go ahead. Here's the manual. To get started, this is kind of a quick step guide. Once you've done it once or twice, you're going to know how to do it, but this kind of keeps you going in the right order, okay? Then following that, I get into more of the details of actually, what all you need to do.
Okay.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, you just ordered your audit kit. I guess it's on the way, but you don't quite have it yet.
Correct.
Okay? All right, so what you're going to get is you're going to have your laptop with the software running on it, the PDF printer we just talked about, and make sure it's set up. The audit kit itself, it comes with a barometer, a thermometer, a vacuum, the actual test meter itself, this thermocouple pigtail, and you're also, and I don't think they're shipping these anymore, this Y connector. You used to have to use those with the portable consoles, but I don't know if you remember when they came in for their upgrades, we replaced the TC connectors on the back, and now you just have standard jacks on the back of the console. So basically all you use now is the pigtail and stuff, so you don't need that Y adapter, so don't let it confuse you, okay?
Okay.
And if you look in here, as we talk about this, there's basically, let me get down here for just a second. I'm going to show you the reason I'm talking about that. I want to picture the back of the console. This is your old console, and you used to have your TC connector, but on a regular 6000, it's going to tell you to plug into the chiller port, and that's when you just plug it in the back of the console instead of that connector. Okay, I don't have it.
Yeah, and after the upgrade, there was quite a few more connections on it than we had before.
Correct. And all we did is that it used to have like a round Amphenol type connector, and all the TCs came out of the umbilical and went through that.
Right.
And with part of the upgrade, we upgraded to just a standard jack, which they're more robust and they're easier to troubleshoot and maintain than that Amphenol connector. You ended up having to have a special tool to pop pins and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So originally, that's what AEP told us they wanted. We first built these things several years ago, and I think they've kind of changed their mind too, so that's why they put that as part of the update that we did. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to step through it. I'm going to be kind of going back and forth to the manual a little bit and then actually stepping through the software at the same time, okay?
All right.
To give you a feel of this. I'm going to cut a couple corners because, just we won't be here too long, but I am going to hit all the important pieces, okay?
That's fine.
All right. So basically, what you want to do is make sure that you finished whatever run you were doing, and do your post leak, and you're pretty much set just as a clean startup like I have it here. You go into your and please stop me, ask questions as we go. It makes it more interesting for everybody, I think, and make sure I don't skip over something that's not clear. Okay. Big utilities right here, and then you've got your button for your console audit. And some of this information is kind of driven by what your plant wants you to put in. It's, this top field is just a text field. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Normally, if you read the manual, it talks about what you want to do is hook this up and actually warm it up for about 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes. By connecting the reference meter to it and just pulling air through it. Okay. For sake of time, I'm not going to do that today, but basically just connect it and set up a 30-minute constant 500 cc test and just let it run. That way you get your other stuff all put together, and because the audit kits tend to they sit around for 2 or 3 months. You dig them out every once in a while. They they can be cold or just been sitting. So by running them a little bit, you end up getting a lot better results.
So it's just set up an actual test run and started?
Yeah. Probe out of the stack, just sitting out because you're going to be needing it.
No traps, just
no traps. Just all I'm trying to do is just pull air through the system.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Usually, and also just to make it easier, I'll go ahead and turn on the front of the console. You got a switch to turn off the probe power.
Yes.
I usually turn it off and just kind of let it cool off a little bit. Just makes it easier to handle it because you're going to be handling the probe a little bit.
All right.
Okay. Don't have to, but again, it just makes it easier. Okay. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to step through this and verify the different sensors and that the dry gas meter is reading correctly. So the first one we're doing is the barometer. Now the audit kit, it has a digital barometer with it. You can use that, or if you have a reference in your control center, you can use that, or you can also use the airport, weather station on. Most of the guys are doing these days is they're bringing up the weather on their phone and finding out what the barometric pressure is.
Okay. Does it matter that
the only thing you need to remember is that's legal by the EPA. It's specified in the method. You can do that. What you need to do though is you need to know what your elevation is above sea level at your testing point. So if you're if you're 500 feet,
we can use up the stack.
Right. So if you're 500 feet and you've got another 500-foot stack, you're 1,000 feet off sea level. For every 100 feet, you subtract 0.1 from what the airport tells you to correct it for altitude.
Okay. Now, if we actually have a barometric pressure and just read it right at the port that we're on.
Yeah, if you've got something to read it right there, that's fine too. If you've got one, like I said, maybe in your control center, but it's probably at the base of the stack, so you're going to be up higher where the console is. Depends on, I don't know where the console is going to be when you do that.
Yeah, we have a correction factor and all that on it for the.
Okay, yeah, that's all. All we're doing is looking for the pressure. So, I've got a Mercury barometer here in our Cal lab, and that's where I got my numbers from, that I'm using here. Okay. So you put in baro. Again, a lot of this is some tracking type information, whatever you really want to put. Just kind of making some notes. All this will get printed out, so when you turn it in, you can show what you use for your references, etc.
Okay.
Or, you could say airport, or I guessed, or whatever. You know what I mean?
So wasn't there a barometer in the Cal kit?
There is, and you can use that. You've got to set it up. You've got to be a little careful with it. If you get it off of barometer mode and change it to like altitude mode, then climb the stack, it doesn't know the difference of pressure change from altitude versus barometer. If that makes sense.
Okay.
So to me, it's a lot simpler and cleaner. And I like using the airport. I've got on my phone, I've got a little GPS app that'll tell me my altitude because I travel around. I don't know if
Right.
stacks are necessary. Use that quick calculation, and I know what my numbers are.
Okay.
Okay. So from what I had on my reference was 29.6. Okay. You just say next. Okay. Right here, the console is reading 29.57. Okay. So all it's doing is comparing these numbers, and it passed. Okay.
All right.
Okay. So next step is the vacuum. So what I'm going to do is, or Dave's going to do it for me. He's going to hook up my. If you look at the front of the audit kit right here, you notice there's a vacuum gauge on it, and right
Yep.
here there's a knob. And basically it'll shut off the flow. So what I'm doing is I'm hooking up the audit kit to the inlet, the A inlet port. Okay. And then when I turn my pump on, I will shut the valve, and then I'm going to read what the vacuum is on this. This becomes my reference.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so let me go back to my application. There we go. I got a lot of screens open. Sorry about that. All right. And again, over here, I can come over and add back reference, and I'm using the audit kit, AK6000. On the very front of the audit kit, it's got a model number, a serial number, when it was audited, or when it was last calibrated, and when it's due to be calibrated again. The audit kit itself needs to go back once a year to get calibrated. And the console itself, as long as it passes its quarterly audit, it's good to go.
Okay.
Okay? All right, so Dave's got me hooked up here. I'm going to start my pump. And what I do is, I give it a couple seconds, just watch the vacuum gauge till it kind of stops. Then it's an analog vacuum gauge, so, a couple light taps just to make sure it's, where it needs to go.
Okay.
And I'm reading 21.5. Okay. Then I just said, next. All right. So console's at 22, 21, so it is fast. All right. Now David is moving the sample line to the B side on the back of the console. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to start my pump. I'm getting about a 21. Okay. So those have both passed. Okay. All right. So what we're doing now we're getting ready to start checking the thermocouples. All right. What we use is part of the audit kit. You're going to see it. It looks like a thermos, a wide mouth thermos. And what you do is you put in ice, fill it with water, and then put in your use your digital thermometer to verify it's at 32 degrees. Is basically what you're doing. I know it's kind of basic physics, but so Dave's got his bucket of water here. What's the temperature? BGM's first. 30, not 32. All right. So what he's doing, let's see if it's, let me go back here just a second. Now what you have to do to get to the thermocouples on the portable consoles that you have, if you've ever opened one up or anything, but you open the door and you got the two screws at the top, you loosen them and the front fault leans forward.
Yeah.
Okay. Usually I put like a little box or something underneath it just so it doesn't lean over too far or fall off the bench, that type of thing. But in the, if you look right here, this picture here is that's the 6,000 portal we're talking about, and the dry gas meters. This is the front plate, and here's your dry gas meters. You can see the thermocouples come around and go into this little well. There's not a fitting there. It's kind of like a pressure fit. You just have to, it just sticks down in there. Okay.
Okay.
You've got an A and a B. Okay.
All right.
What we're doing now, all right, Dave's pulled those out. Okay. I've checked my temperature of my water, and what he's done, he's sticking those two thermocouples into the bucket of water. Okay? So you kind of see, here's my reference temperature I used, and this is what my DGMs are reading. Okay?
Okay.
All right, so all I do from here is I just say next, and I pass. All right, so what Dave's going to do now, Dave's going to put the TCs back in the dry gas meters. All you do is just wipe them off with your hand. You make sure there's not, dropping moisture and things around.
Right.
And it is a little tricky. First time you do it, you're going to fuss at me. Those damn engineers. And once you get the DGMs put back where they belong, you want to make sure you go ahead and close the front panel of the console and tighten your screws up so it won't fall open on you or anything. If you forget and leave the front door, leave them laying down flat, when you get to the next step and you try to actually run the DGM test, the gas meters won't run when they're laying down flat, so it's going to throw you all off. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Right, he's getting that. The next one we're going to be checking is the actual stack TC. So, basically, here's that thermos we were talking about with the ice and the water in it. Okay. And what you actually do is you just stick the end of the probe into it, because this small little piece right here, that is the actual stack TC. Sticking out of the end of the probe. Okay. This is a little tricky. The thermos, it fits, it works well. I tend to prefer like a 1-gallon bucket. It just makes it easier to, maneuver. Okay, so Dave's got the TCs put back. Got the front cover closed. Where did my thing go? Okay. Now what Dave's done now is he's taken his probe and stuck the tip down in that bucket of ice water. Okay, because you can see my temperatures here now, right?
Yeah.
33. I just tell it next. I tell it okay. All right. Now the last step is the chiller. Now it's not required by the method, but the way this software works is we use that chiller input port to read the temperature of my reference gas meter. So we want to verify and make sure it's reading properly. Okay? So what Dave's done now is that little pigtail we were talking about, he plugged it into the chiller port on the back of the console. I don't have a picture of that, sorry. But right on the back of the console, you'll see the one that's actually labeled chiller. Unplug the chiller and just plug your pigtail into it. Okay?
Okay.
right? And it's right at 33 also, so I say next. Okay, so now we're getting into the DGM parts, and it'll give you a lot of pop-ups, and you want to make sure you read them, because they're going to guide you through. You know, I can almost guarantee the first time you do this, or one time you can do this, you're going to forget to move a cable or leave something plugged in that you shouldn't. So just if you kind of follow these and go right along with them, usually you're going to be okay. But just take your time on the first time you do it and really think about what you're doing. You should be fine. Okay.
All right.
All right, now we've got a little checkbox. This right here says use the chiller input. That's what I was talking about, where I'm using the chiller input temperature to read my secondary reference device. Okay, so when I click that, it goes ahead and fills this in for me. So I don't need an extra thermometer, or I don't need to test the audit kit per se. Okay, and up here again. And it was 01104 003. Okay. All right. On the front of the reference device, it will show the gamma. Anytime you're using one of these audit kits with a digital display, the gamma is always 1. If by chance you were in your own lab and maybe using a wet test meter or some other reference meter, you might have a gamma number, you know, 0.99 or 0.98 something. Okay, if you're familiar with gammas. Your flow rate, you want to use kind of what your average sampling rate is when you run your normal test. So if you normally run it, you know, 500 cc's, you'd use 500. If you know, kind of an average. It doesn't have to be exact, but it's about what you normally run at. Okay, I'm going to use 500 because it runs a little quicker. I'm sorry, flow rate. That's 500 cc, so it's 0.5. Okay. Now your volume to test, the manual is going to tell you do at least 5 liters. And I'm going to do that on this first one. Actually, I'm not. I'm going to do 2.5. It's a little smaller. The only reason I'm using 2.5 instead of 5 is to make it go a little faster. Okay? So you don't have to sit here for 10 minutes watching it. Okay?
So we would use a minimum of 5.
A minimum of 5, and basically I tell people and here's an option for you too. If you, let's say you didn't warm your unit up and whatever, if you ran it at 5 and it failed, go back and you can redo it and just rerun it again and do it the second time, and by then it'll have enough time to warm it up again. That makes sense. But you'll be able to redo this if you need to. Okay. All right. On the front of the reference meter it's a red lion totalizer display. It's showing you the volume for the reference device. What I'm doing is I'm hitting the reset button, so it's reading all zeros. That's my starting point. I just put in a 0.
Okay.
All right. And got everything, Dave. We're good to go. You also want to remember remember we did our vacuum test up here? We closed that valve off for the flow. You want to make sure the valve is open.
All right.
Okay. All right. These are some little glitches and gotchas that I've seen before. I'm not getting flow. You got nothing. You got flow through it. It's just a. Now it's going now. It just started.
The A side.
Mm-hmm.
Right, gas meter A.
Okay, I had a little technical difficulty here on my reference device. So. Excuse me, the way it goes when you're trying to show somebody something.
No, that's all right. We know how that goes.
Should be. Yeah, I'm here. So far, this is this is pretty much kind of making sense, the flow of it and all.
Yes. So right now, and with this is left on A side. So that's the one we checked last, whatever you used last. You just start with that. Where you put your vacuum check.
Yeah.
Where you check A and B side. There's
Correct.
no particular order we have to do it in.
Yeah, you got to do A first. So you need then that's another one of the gotchas. You forget and leave it left on B.
All right.
And that's why it pops up and tells you connect to the A inlet.
Yeah.
So if you're doing it 500 cc's and you do your 5, you're going to be roughly a 10-minute run.
Okay. All right.
Now the top half of the screen where you do your barometer and your vacuum and your thermocouples, those are kind of, if you mess them up or fail them, you kind of pretty much have to do it over, start over for those.
Okay.
The DGMs themselves, you can actually redo them individually if need. You type in a wrong number or something like that.
Okay.
Or they're kind of like we were talking about, you didn't warm it up enough, or you just want to run it a little longer. Or
So once the first top half passes, then you can just rerun the rest of this off.
Yeah, you saw how long it took, so it's not that much to do. The DGMs are what really takes the most amount of time, just sitting and waiting for it running.
Okay.
And again, I ran this one short, so I'm hoping I'll pass okay. But yeah, the reason for the 5 liters is method says that you've got to make at least 3 revolutions of the meter, and that's the reason where the 5 came from.
Okay.
Okay, so move him out of the way. So you can see what I did is I entered my end. Okay, and what it's actually doing, the calibrated gamma is the gamma that is in the console, or is also known as a scaling factor, and it's an adjustment to make it read in line with wet test meter.
Okay.
Familiar with gammas and things on meters? You know what I'm talking about? It's an adjustment to get you up to your reference is what it amounts to. Okay, and on the terminology comes a lot from the older mechanical that had the dials like your gas meters at home kind of thing, and you get a little mechanical slippage and different things like that. And what can happen is they read over a certain volume, they'll be a little bit off from a standard or a reference. So what you do is you apply a factor to get it up to what that standard would be. So that's what it's doing. So what we're doing as far as in the audit, we have the calibrated is what's in the console, and basically we recalculate a new gamma based on using the secondary reference meter, and then we compare them to each other.
Okay.
And you have to be within 5% to pass.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so when I finished that, so it gave me this little pop-up box. Okay. Right now it's telling you DGMB, connect the reference device to the sample B in port.
Okay.
Okay. and it may sound crazy, but two people trying to do an audit sometimes is worse than the other because you think the other person did something, and they didn't.
Yeah.
So it can get confusing a little bit. All right, so I'm just going to say okay. Now on the reference device, it's got, again, like I did on the first one, it's got a reset button. So I just hit the reset button. It's on 0. Confirming with Dave, my partner here, that he did move it. I did move it. All right, so my starting point is at 0 again. I'm going to keep the same volumes I ran and same flow rates I ran on my first one. And just click next. And when you get ready to do your first ones live, when you get all your gear, I mean, the front of the console, it's got an 800 phone number on it. Just feel free to call, and any questions you have or you're not sure of anything, and just ask for Mercury support.
Okay.
And one of the techs can, kind of the same thing we're doing now, just talk you through it, or if you're having problems or not so much a problem, but just maybe not understanding something. You just want to understand what we're really doing or why we're doing it, that type of thing.
We had
we're always here for you.
We had a PowerPoint we were looking at. Anyway, it has this under Apex dry gas meter audit.
Yes.
Under the gas flow meter calibration, they had a frequency at 3 settings prior to initial use, and at least quarterly at 1 setting thereafter.
Correct.
So this 3 setting prior to initial use, is that, what's that referring to?
That's what we do here in the lab.
Okay.
And you should have received some paperwork when the console came back, and it would have shown you it was running at like 300, 600, and 900 cc.
Okay.
3 different points, and that's what they're talking about there.
So if we would ever fail or we can't get this working, it has to go back in, then you would do that there, and then.
Correct, and part of it depends on what fails. Let's say it's just a dry gas meter that failed. You can actually order a new calibrated gas meter from us. So we'll take just the meter, we'll run it through the lab by itself, provide you another 3-point calibration certificate, and the gamma factors and scaling factors. So all you have to do is change the meter and put in the new values.
Oh, okay.
So every time something happens, you don't have to send the whole thing back. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Quarterly calibration. Yes. Our normal. The only thing I can tell you is look at the old laptop. You'll see the bring up the profile, the software, see where we had it set to report. Then that would give us some reference. Well, if we get too high flow, we're going to have wet track. start off where we were. Adjust there. But I don't know that it's going to be that big a deal. It's going to run short period. Probably leave it at 500. How long we got to put it back? We'll just test it. I don't know of any way to test it.
Okay, so I'm just entering the numbers off my reference meter. Okay, click next. It says I've passed. Okay.
Okay.
All right, come down here. Just read them up just touch. I've got my print button. Remember, I'm using that little that cute PDF thing I was talking about.
Yes.
I showed you, an XPS writer or any kind of a PDF creator. There's a Primo PDF. There's a bunch of them out there free. You can just get. So it's going to be console audit. This actually happens to be Flint Creek machine.
Okay.
And what are we at today? We're about let's see, 19? Okay. And I save it. I put it on my desktop, just a standard Windows file save command. Now, first couple times you do this to get comfortable with it, what I recommend doing is go and look at it. Okay? Make sure it looks good. Make sure you did print it, and make sure you can find it. It's where you thought it should be. Right? Because so here's my audit, because this is what you would turn in with your paperwork or whatever. Okay.
Okay.
So it's all here. It all looks good. I got my technicians. Everybody's passed. Okay. So I can close it. I can come back to my audit. I can say done. And it's going to warn you again. Make sure that it was printed correctly. Confirm you want to exit. If you want to exit, just say yes, which we do.
So it's not right. It's going to start all over.
If you didn't save it and you say yes, you get to do it again. Right now, I'm going to say no. But right here is where I said I could redo A or B if I needed to.
Oh, okay.
So without having to go back through the entire thing, I could come back here and just redo the B one. Okay?
Doesn't document or record the fact that we've done it more than once? It
no,
doesn't really matter.
long as you pass, each run, if you will, or each audit that you go through creates its own file. So there's no history there. It's saying that you tried it once, it failed, then you tried it again. I mean, you can fail it not only because of equipment, just call it operator error. Things happen. All right. And when you're all done, just make sure you hook your sample lines back up on your A and B side, and you plug your chiller back in on the back of the console, and you're ready to load up traps and start your next test.
Okay.
So it's not hard. Once again, like I said earlier, I think once you go through it once or twice, it's going to be second nature. The first time it can be just read the screens and just kind of follow it through step by step, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, it doesn't look that complicated, really.
No,
we've not done it here on that system before, and we wanted to be a little bit.
Yeah. So, but they always say that the first time's always the best, right?
Yeah.
Like I said, also, feel free to call us, or again, just you call in the main number and ask for tech support or Mercury support. It's all the same guys, and there's 3 or 4 of them down there that'll be able to answer any of your questions or help you with anything you need.
Okay.
All right. Any more questions I can answer for you while we're here? Just general, outside audit, anything about the console or anything else?
What's that?
Do we need to worry about, once we're finished with the room?
Oh, on this one? Well, that won't be printing out. The audit was just to print that page. I guess not really, because the only other thing we have is to set up the profile correctly, but that's going to be pretty much the parameters. we probably pull some old parameters that we kind of played around with before when we were just doing this over the past few years. But
Right.
I'm not sure what all is going to be required for the new ruling as far as documenting all the parameters.
Gotcha.
Like that from our I&C department. But
Okay. Yeah, they should. You know, we'll be glad to help you with that. If if you got questions, the biggest thing I imagine you're going to be running, probably in the past. I don't know if you've been running just constant runs all the time.
well, we were trying to get a baseline before, and we would check it randomly. And we kind of played around with flow rate and temperatures until we got it to where we could get about a 5-day run without having a wet trap.
Understand? Yep.
So we kind of, that's how we are. Now the system's going to be used different. So
Correct. Because now what you're going to be doing is you're going to have to run it proportional. So you're going to have to know your scaling for your stack and things like that.
Because it'll be run, it's going to be run as a backup. We'll have an analog feed to it for the flows.
Right. So more
if we use
more for your backup and like startups and things like
startup
that.
and shutdowns and backup. Right. So those parameters we'll have to we'll get from our I&C and kind of play with those later.
Okay. All right. Well, then I guess I don't have anything else for you unless you just want to talk about
It looks
stuff.
pretty straightforward to me. I mean, I'm good with it. I don't have any questions anywhere else here, so
okay.
I guess we're good.
All right. Well, great. So you figure plan on about an hour the first time you do it. Warm up and the longer DGM runs, and then it's going to take about an hour to do it.
Okay.
Okay.
I think we can handle that. So as soon as we get our kit, we'll run it through a calibration and see how it turns out.
Okay. Sounds good.
Well, thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Appreciate your help.
Anytime. And like I said, just feel free to call if we can do anything for you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.